Oh well, that was it was strange. It was a perfectly normal day. I like going walking, so I walk with Yvonne for half an hour, and then I ride a bike. It was the 20th of February, and ride a bike for half an hour. And if you'd asked me how I went on that, I'd have said not only it was a normal ride and I felt great. I went to several meetings in the hospital, and everyone says that I was functioning normally and they didn't notice anything was wrong. I went to have a cup of coffee at afternoon tea time with Mark Knights, all perfectly normal. Went back to the office and started to feel that I was sweating. I thought, the kiosk was giving me a double strength coffee or something, and I started walking into doors, and I thought, that's strange, and into door frames and whatever. And I wandered down to the clinic and said to Yvonne, I'm just not right. And she could see that I was having trouble just sitting down on the chair, that I just didn't feel right. And luckily, Damath, one of our physicians, was still in the clinic, and she got him, and my blood pressure was very high, and I started to get weakness on the left side, and everyone thought I was having a stroke. And went and had Damath drove me to the emergency department just across the road. Had a CT scan. I was talking about before about this service where the neurologist can look at the scan in Melbourne. And Chris Eberzone was looking after me, and they did the scan, and he said, "Look, it's not a stroke. You've got some sort of mass in the right occipital lobe, which is at the back of the brain." And they flew me to Melbourne the next day. So that's when I found out. Well, it was, I went to the neurosurgery ward there at Royal Melbourne, and I can remember well the nurse there saying, "What are you doing in here? You look too well to be in the neurosurgery ward," and I was perfectly okay. They'd given me some medication, and I wasn't at risk of anything going wrong in the ward. And the neurosurgeon came to see me, and they repeated the MRI. They did the CT, did another MRI. They did one here as well. And he said, "Look, there's a mass there. I don't know exactly what it is." Being medical, I knew what it's most likely to be. And the following Tuesday, he took it out, or as much of it as you can take out. I've been fortunate. It's in a location where both I've had surgery, I've had radiotherapy, I'm having chemotherapy, and the radiotherapist said, "Look, you're fortunate. It's in a spot where you can fire in the radiation," and the surgeon said the same thing. I can take it out without damaging any important structures, and I don't have any problems. I'm tired from it, and I think that's probably the radiotherapy. You have 30 treatments over 6 weeks, and it does make you feel quite tired. And the chemotherapy puts you off your food. The chemotherapy goes for 12 months, so it's 5 days on and then 3 weeks off, and you repeat that for 12 months. I just finished it on last Friday, so it'll be a 3 weeks off. They take a blood sample towards the end of that 3 weeks, and just to see that your white cell count's satisfactory before they fire in some more. The chemotherapy's oral, so I've been spared having IV lines in for hours down in the cancer centre. They're marvellous down there. All the staff are just very, very nice. Well, I knew they were, but I didn't want to have to test the system that way. Bishop Lavelle, the oncologist who comes up from Ballarat's lovely. It's just, yeah. And the staff here have just been so supportive and so welcoming after I've come back after 5 months in Melbourne. I stayed with my son there because we were going for radiotherapy and seeing the oncologist down there. And I didn't want to be too, and the neurosurgeon agreed, I didn't want to be too far from a neurosurgeon if anything went wrong. Look, I've been fortunate. It's a tumour in that the surgeon could remove without damaging any structures. The radiotherapist could fire in the radiation without damaging any structures. The only problem I've had is that I had several seizures in Melbourne and scared the living daylights out of my son and his wife, which I'm upset about. And I ended up in intensive care at Monash Medical Centre for a couple of days, and in that hospital I think for 5 or 6 days. And that was due to inflammation from the radiotherapy. They said it's a recognised complication. But since then I've been recovering slowly. My balance was a bit off, but that's come back, and that's been good. The cancer centre and the oncologist, they've got a really good program. They send you off to an exercise physiologist, to Annabelle in the Arapiles building, and she's marvellous. She's given me a set of exercises to do each day, muscle strengthening exercises, and that's been really good. My balance has returned, and yeah, I'm feeling pretty good at the moment. Well, it's only when I'm taking the chemotherapy I get some nausea. But I'm feeling pretty good. Look, it's marvellous to come back here. I can't work full time. That job is just too stressful. But the hospital's just been very kind and said, you can come in here, you can work. I said, they asked me what I want to do. I said, I'd like to work in quality and safety and work with Sally Taylor and her unit. And they've allowed me to do that, which is fantastic. So I come in for a couple of hours each day. I'm still on the clinical governance committee. Went to that yesterday. That was absolutely fantastic. Really enjoyed myself because I'd been 6 months. That's my passion, doing that sort of stuff. And it was really great to be back interacting with the board members and the clinical risk staff. I really enjoy that sort of thing. Yeah, look, I've got a regime in the morning where I go out with Yvonne for a walk for half an hour, and then I go and do another half an hour myself. And then I've got I do some mindfulness. I'm really keen. I finished a course at Monash on that, and I think that's tremendous. And then I do my muscle strengthening exercises, do a bit of reading, and then pop in here. So I went to the medical unit meeting at lunchtime, which is really good. And now I'm doing this. So I've got various things. There's a whole program on the quality and safety side that Sally's asked me to help her with, and I'm only too delighted. The health service has got its challenges, and it needed COVID like a hole in the head. All the hospitals are the same, and we're starting to see the cracks appear. Like we're seeing it say, talking about aged care. It's not just bad luck that about those deaths in aged care. We knew that was underfunded. We've known that for a long period of time. So that's disappointing. It's interesting now that there's been a huge amount of money given to hospitals, and they're buying ventilators and various other pieces of equipment, and that's all. And then there's money available to make sure that we deal well with the COVID side of things. May it not come to Horsham in any numbers. It's disappointing that we can't get the redevelopment here. We've got buildings that just clearly need to be replaced, and that's disappointing. You're trying to recruit staff. So where would we be if we hadn't taken that enormous leap with Chris Scott took to build the medical centre over there with 17 consulting rooms, which I might add are also full now. We need more, and we thought, well, we've planned that for the next generation. We had. We were recruiting and using 1 Arnott Street for medical consulting, and it was a dilapidated old weatherboard house. And I'm bringing people from the UK and various other places and saying, come and work here. And I'm going to take them into a place like that, where I said, look, the hospital looks pretty good and we've got these innovative programs and we'll look after you, but this is where you're going to consult every afternoon. So that particular leap of faith, and we didn't have all the money for that, which put Chris under enormous pressure, but it was done, and now it's a major positive for the hospital.
We've got a neurologist.
We've got a neurologist. Things happen. We've got a neurologist. Now, I can remember the first week that some of the visiting people came from Ballarat and we were working from the clinic, and they were working in the clinic, and they couldn't believe how nice it was. There was the rooms and well decked out and whatever. Usually doctors are consulting in dog boxes because the hospitals don't have enough money to give them good accommodation for their consulting.